This feature is presented by New Era Graphics.
Here it comes. Hit, line drive, diving catch out there by Benny Ruiz, and he may have saved the ball game right there.
He certainly did.
There's a little looper into left field. That's going to be a base hit to keep the Tiger rally alive.
It's been said that every town has its story. Tales of love and loss, heroes and heartbreak. On the surface, the town of Glens Falls, New York appears too small to house professional baseball. With a population of less than 15,000, it's 1/3 the size of the Eastern League's smallest community, Altoona, Pennsylvania. So in 1979, when Dick Stanley and Frank Schaefer were looking for a home for their AA expansion franchise, Glens Falls was understandably an underdog. After all, Stanley and Schaefer had their sights set 42 miles south in the city of Schenectady.
Dick walked into my office one morning and said, Frank, how would you like to buy a ball team? The story was that he had seen in the Wall Street Journal an advertisement for 2 baseball franchises.
The idea we had was, okay, let's buy the franchise and we'll move it to Schenectady. They had a beautiful ball field with dugouts, a fence around it, but no stands and no locker rooms. And they were going to build the locker rooms, put stands around it, and put lights in. And everybody's in favor of this except one group of people who happen to live by the park. And they didn't want anybody in their private park. Now the full-time mayor takes over. He comes to us and says, okay guys, to appease this group, okay, we don't want you to sell beer. Okay, we won't sell beer. A week later he comes back, to appease this group, we don't want you to have billboards on the outfield fence. Okay. Then he comes back a couple weeks later, to appease this group, you will not charge admission. You'll pass the hat. At that point in time, this is not going to work out.
With only months to go until the Eastern League kicked off its 1980 season, Stanley and Schaefer were still without a home for their club. What was clearly a problem for the AA White Sox was a big opportunity for the community of Glens Falls.
Meanwhile, the mayor in Glens Falls says, why don't you come up here? This is early February now. And we go up there, and he shows us a field that has a diamond, a tree growing behind shortstop, and nothing else.
No grandstand, there was nothing. So we had to start from scratch. There was no lights, and of course, AA baseball required lights. So the commissioner of baseball, Commissioner Kuhn, Bowie called me on the phone, and he said, Mayor, I want to have this commitment to hear from you that you will have lights in by the end of this season. And I said, yes. He said, that's fine with me. I'm signing off on the franchise coming to Glens Falls.
Despite the green light, there was little time to celebrate. With just 3 weeks to go until opening day, the race was on to get East Field ready. Some would say they needed a miracle. Luckily, upstate New York was just the place to be for those believing in such things in 1980.
The Olympics were completing in 1980, Lake Placid, which is about an hour and a half from here. The original press box that Jim McKay broadcast from was our press box for the first couple of years.
He gets all these portable bleachers he can find, brings down portable bleachers, the portable ticket stands that they're selling.
They took a field that was a shambles, and between then and April we opened on schedule on East Field.
First game when they came, I don't know, they got bleachers from every resource, high schools, the Olympics.
There was an awful lot of people, and everybody was yelling, and it was roped off, and if you looked out at it, you just saw people. You could, heads going over heads, to see what's going on.
It was overwhelming where they actually had to rope off part of the outfield where it was in play, but there was folks that were being herded into the outfield in play, and if the ball, from what I remember, if the ball went into the people that were behind the ropes, the ground rule double.
Over 6,100 people were at East Field on opening day. That's over 1/3 of the city's population. It was also a sign of things to come. Despite finishing last in their division, 11 games under 500, Glens Falls led the Eastern League in attendance in their inaugural season.
The first year in 1980, that was just kind of the honeymoon stage.
At least for part of that season, there were no lights here at East Field, so all the games were during the day. And my friends and I would get on our bikes right after school and ride the 3-5 miles, whatever it was, up here to watch the game.
It's kind of a rudimentary stadium here. There were banks off to the side there, just like hills, and people would sit on the hills. There weren't really bleachers.
To be able to stand alongside the fence, alongside the dugout, and really have almost unfettered access to the players from an autograph standpoint, that type of thing. It was neat at that time in my life.
If you're watching live baseball in the region, before there was pro baseball, it was either high school baseball or American Legion baseball or Little League baseball. Just to have real professional baseball players playing right in your own backyard, what a thrill.
While novelty brought fans to the park in 1980, it was the long ball that kept them coming back in 1981. The Glen Sox led the league in offense that season, thanks in part to a 40-home run, 103 RBI campaign by a 23-year-old slugger, good enough to be named the Eastern League's MVP.
The first thing that I think of when I think of those years is Ron Kittle, and the mammoth home runs that he would hit onto Haskell Avenue.
Ron Kittle's balls used to hit over there in back of me. I'm not going to say how many windows, but there were a lot replaced.
Every night, home runs were flying out of here and like missiles, going farther than the eye could see. So the talk around town was, go see the ball games, because the offensive weapons that the team had. I mean, it was a good team all around, good pitching, good hitting, but just the opportunity to see home runs and baseball being played, at a level, much higher than high school and alike. It was just very exciting for folks.
During their first 3 seasons, Glens Falls was one of only 2 Eastern League teams located in the Empire State, the other being Buffalo, which was over 300 miles away. But in 1983, the landscape changed. The defending league champion A's opted to leave West Haven. Their landing spot? Albany, New York, a mere 1-hour drive from Glens Falls.
They created that first rival, if you want to say, for the Glens Falls franchise.
It's a double-edged sword by having a competing team on the side of attendance, on the side of bringing the rivalry, and the press was great.
The fans would come out with just that wanting of, beating the enemy.
There was a rivalry there, and you could feel it amongst the players, and I think just working in the front office, you kind of got caught up in that emotion.
What happened, however, is because Albany was a bigger market, it started cutting into the ability of our business plan for advertising and promotion. So if you have a large grocery chain in this area, they're going to spend more money in Albany rather than Glens Falls. They're not going to cut Glens Falls market out, but instead of spending 100% of the money in Glens Falls, they now started spending 75 or 50%. And also the media, instead of having to drive an hour north to Glens Falls to report on a baseball game or a hockey game, they could just go 10 or 15 minutes across town. So those combination of factors, and to a great extent, outweighed the rivalry and the attendance from putting fans in the seats.
As if their decisive population advantage wasn't enough, Albany got another boost in the rivalry in the mid-'80s, when both cities underwent affiliation changes. Glens Falls went from the White Sox to the Tigers, while Albany inherited the crown jewel of the region, when they became the AA affiliate of the New York Yankees.
Albany's franchise changed from the Oakland A's to the New York Yankees. That was a big plus for them, being a New York State based team.
So we had a AA Yankee franchise to compete with a AA Tiger franchise in Yankee country, and a population area much larger than ours. So that certainly was a big hindrance to us.
They were the Yankee farm team, and everybody loved the Yankees up here.
We had a fairly loyal group used to come north to our games, and obviously they stopped doing that. They went to Albany, as well as people from here who'd rather see a Yankee team play than a Tiger team play.
During the Yankees' first year in Albany, Glens Falls struggled at the gate, posting the second lowest attendance in franchise history. While the Yankees' presence didn't help, other factors such as unfavorable weather and a lackluster stadium were also hurting Glens Falls. By 1986, rumors began to swirl regarding the team's future. The days of AA baseball in Glens Falls were numbered.
Well, there were always murmurs. Oh, the team will leave, the team will leave. As new teams came into the league, they were in communities a lot larger than Glens Falls. They had beautiful stadiums. And, it wasn't uncommon to think, we could lose this team to a bigger market.
We actually paved the way for these larger cities to say, hey, we can provide a bigger market, we can provide a better facility, so let's start going after. And so what happened really is that minor league baseball at the AA level outgrew Glens Falls and Pittsfield, Mass, and Oneonta and communities like that.
We just had such a great atmosphere here. We had great crowds. We felt we could keep up with the big boys. And we worked our butts off. The front office especially left no stone unturned. And we tried our darndest, but because we were a smaller market, and the novelty wore off a little bit, so attendance tended to drag a little bit, the writing started to be on the wall.
The Eastern League was trying to become competitive as a league, and as they say, the major leagues were beginning to make noises about better stadiums.
We were concerned about the facility, had been concerned about the facility from the beginning of time. We were in the process of trying to upgrade the facilities in the Eastern League. Major League Baseball was looking for that. So that was a big factor in why the team really needed to leave Glens Falls.
When I was first in Glens Falls, Harrisburg was a brand new ballpark, and I go back there now, I'm thinking, and we thought that was like the greatest place on earth, and you go back there now, and they have since redone it, but if we thought that was good, we realized how bad the league was.
I think we all realized that it's a business, and almost that level of baseball started to outgrow our community.
By mid-1988, rumors would become reality. Midway through the season, word leaked out that the team would be moving to London, Ontario, Canada. But before departing, they would leave Glens Falls baseball fans with a few more memories, including a most unlikely feat in mid-April.
In 1988, Cesar Mejia, who was really the top pitcher on the Tigers team that year, very early in the season, pitched a no-hitter here.
It was actually the second no-hitter in the history of Eastfield. Bill Cooper, who was actually part of the 88 team, had pitched a no-hitter here in 1986.
It was early in the season in upstate New York.
No flurries all around. It was April.
And at one point, one of the outfield signs blew off or fell off the fence, and the grounds crew had to go out and get that back up. So there was that type of a delay during the game, and he still, succeeded in pitching the no-hitter. And so that's one of those memories that sticks out.
In their final year in Glens Falls, the Tigers put together a strong campaign, finishing the regular season in first place. However, the on-field success did not translate in the seats. In their last regular season home game, the club gave away 11,000 free tickets, yet only 2,300 people showed up. As for the playoffs, it was a fitting end for this story. The top-seeded Glens Falls Tigers were upset in the first round by none other than the Albany Colony Yankees. Once and for all, it was lights out for AA baseball in Glens Falls.
I kind of likened it to when you have a good friend in the neighborhood that you've grown up with, and all of a sudden one day that friend says, my parents have a better offer, or my parents have a better job offer, and we're moving out of town, and there's just that feeling of emptiness, that feeling of void, a little anger, because it's like, gee, what can I do?
Dick and I came here with the intent to stay, and it became impossible for a number of reasons. So definitely I was sorry to see the team have to go, and I was sorry to see the disappointed people here, because there were really a core of real fans who never missed a home game.
There's a sense of a part of the community just it's going to be missing. And in terms of just almost like a generation of kids couldn't feel that excitement for watching professional sports.
I have a son now who is 19 and was a big baseball fan, but really grew up, without a professional team here for all intents and purposes. And so I would have liked to have been able to share some of that experience with him.
More than any other sport, baseball is a curious contradiction of numbers and nostalgia. By the late 80s, the numbers no longer worked in Glens Falls, New York. But for those who were along for the 9-year journey, the end result is of little importance. Every town does have its story, and small as it may be, Glens Falls will always have its chapter as part of America's pastime.
We were able to look back, and Ken Griffey Jr. played here, not for the Tigers, but he was on the Vermont Mariners. Roger Clemens pitched in this stadium. The Tigers themselves, we had John Smoltz on our team in 1987.
Even though it's been well over 20 years since the team left, you feel like sometimes it was just yesterday.
Anytime I drive by East Field, you know, there's a bunch of memories that come flooding back.
Baseball brings people together. You know, it's part of the American pastime, and you know, we had it, and I look back thinking I miss it, but I was really glad to have the opportunity to be a part of it.